Okay, so in this program we are drawing some numbers in the shape of a wedge onto the screen based on the number that was entered from the user. So it gives a couple of wants you to do things. One's a counting up wedge, one is a counting down wedge. So it would appear in this program, the user would enter 5, and it prints all of the numbers from 1 to 5, and then it reduces each one until it finally gets to 1. And then the count down wedge, it starts at 5 and it goes down to 1 until it finally runs out of numbers to work with. Okay, so this is probably a nested loop solution that we're going to need to implement here. So we're going to have an outer loop that controls how many times we're going to print down the screen, and we're going to have an inner loop that prints the values of the columns. So let's go to our IDE and we'll see if we can get that to work. So we need the size of our wedge. And that's just an integer. Okay, so in our practice one it was 5. So let's do the count up wedge first. So nested loop. So the outer loop is the rows. And it needs to count 5 times, or size number of times. So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to use a while loop. So while row is less than or equal to size, and then I'm going to make sure that row goes up by 1 every time through the loop. So this is my while loop set up to go the correct number of times down through the loop here. Okay. And then what do I need to do? So now we've got to work with the inner loop. So the inner loop is printing the columns, and the columns always start at 1. So we need a counter for our column variable starting at 1. So while column is less than or equal to, now here's where it gets interesting, because it has to reduce the how many times this loop executes. So if I look back at it here, the first time through the loop, it's executing 5 times, then 4 times, then 3 times, then 2 times, then 1 time. So there's a relationship between the row number and how many times the inner loop prints. So when the row is 1, the inner loop needs to be the size subtract 1. Okay. On the next row here, the amount of times the inner loop executes will be 5 subtract 2. So if this is row 0, row 1, row 2, it's subtracting the row value from that the outer loop exists at the time. So if I go back in here, so if I subtract row, okay, it will reduce by the correct amount every time through. And all this inner loop is doing is printing the column number. So it'll print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 the first time, 1, 2, 3, 4 the second time, 1, 2, 3 the third time, because it's just stopping before it gets to the correct value. And we're all printing on the same line separated by spaces here. Okay? And column goes up by 1. All right. And so this prints an entire, this piece of code here will print an entire row, but I need to have it go down to the next line before my other loop executes there. Okay, so let's just maybe test this to see whether that is going to work correctly or not for the counting up wedge. Okay. So it is accomplishing what it's going. It's got an extra space there, so it's executing 1 too many times. So I need less than, not less than or equal to. Okay, and now that's working better. So now let's count down. Okay, so we can do the same type of thing here. So we'll start with our row. It's going to do it the same amount of times. Okay. Oh, what am I doing? Row is equal to 0. Well, row is less than size. Okay, so now this inner loop is a bit different. So it's not starting at 1. I want to make the same type of print statement here. So it's not starting at 1. What it's doing is it's starting at size. Okay, and it's counting down. All right, and it's got to count down until it's bigger than the row value, because so this is row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. So it can't get to row 5, right? So it should be while column is bigger than row. Okay, and column is going to count down this time. So in my loop, I'll have it subtract 1 every time. And then I can just do my print column inside there. And to finish off the loop, I need to print the next row, or make it go down a line, and make sure my row counter goes up. And hopefully that will work. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, and now it's counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, and 5. Okay, and that should work for any other size input as well, which it does. You can go as big as you want it. If you go too big, it's going to print off the screen. So that seems to be working.